Hi, I'm Antonio Teoli. I'm a game composer. I'm the owner of the company Andromeda Sound, and I compose for the game called Dicefolk. And let's have some fun. It's all, I always tell my friends it was always three franchises. So it was Sonic 2, Final Fantasy, and the main theme for Legend of Zelda. My favorite game up to this day still is the Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. It's still that's the peak of humanity on the game world for me. But those three franchises, they always played a huge influence on my creativity and my life. I have a picture here on you guys cannot see it, but I have a picture here in my wall with my dad teaching me acoustic guitar when I was 9 months old. And when I was 7, I started learning piano. When I was 12, I started playing tuba on an orchestra in Brazil. That's where I'm from. I live in LA, but I'm from Brazil. 14 to 15, I started learning to play guitar. So I always had this influence with music. In my first game that I ever worked on, I was 16 years old, like a new IP with a small company in Brazil. So, but the passion for music always has been with me. It's my favorite way to communicate something to people, much more than words, much more than anything. Even though when I'm working on a game like Dicefolk, for example, even though it's not my story, I still want to make sure people will get that story from the director's perspective, translated through my ears and hands. So I still think it is awesome. So in the end, I just like to tell a good story, and music is my favorite way to do it. When you talk about, let's say, a game, first thing I ask is all about the story. Then I ask about game dynamics. Is a fast-paced game? Is a slow-paced game? Even color palette, if it's like a super colorful game or it's like a more monochromatic, that means I'm going to use more or less instruments. The target audience, I need to understand quite well. Thematic, if it's a game that happens on a time that existed or didn't exist. So with other projects, it's kind of like the same thing. I need to understand what are we working for? Otherwise, it's a little tricky for me. It feels like too vague and too empty, and it can be challenging. Not bad, but it can be challenging. The good side is that when you have more freedom, you can tell a story closer to what you want to tell. Like Bruce Dickinson, for example, it's just amazing to have the opportunity to collaborate with someone that is so open-minded to, listen to ideas, and it's so cool. And that's where I am right now. So there is a concert that it's touring in Brazil, and I think it's going to tour in some countries in South America as well, for a franchise that I love. It's actually my favorite franchise, called Sensei. I don't know if you guys know Sensei. It's super popular in Brazil. But then I orchestrated some tracks for it, and I knew exactly what the audience was expecting to hear. So in this particular case, it's pretty much easier to know where to go. But that's pretty much it. Like, basically, it's all about the message you want to send, independently of the medium you are working for. So basically, let's say on cutscenes, for example, right? I'm going to use an example of cutscenes because that's the prime moment where the music is definitely telling a story. So when you have like characters talking, you are composing a music that follows what the dialogue is telling. So if it's the one character is on that particular moment is saying something that it kind of feels dark, then that's where the music will go. I'm going to reinforce that message to make sure the players feel that dark energy. If there's something that is connected to something from the past, from the character that is listening, or for some of the story for the character that is listening, what I can do is put hints of that melody underneath that dark moment. So you don't have like the full motif play, blasting full power orchestration, but you have like hints. And the player, and the listening or the player that goes like, how can I say that? Even though you don't realize that with your like a clear message, your subconscious is like receiving that and it's processing without you knowing it. So your subconscious is like doing this work. It's getting that message for sure. So this is all about part of telling a story. You need to understand a little bit of behavior, how the audience reacts to how the music plays in particular moments of the game. Ennio Morricone say that music, especially when it's like really focused on telling a story, let's say again, like a cutscene, it's like a dialogue. You have like one person speaking, then you have another person speaking. Each time one speaks is a melody, then there's a counter melody, then it gets loud, it gets quieter. More people show up, so the arrangement grow up. So all of this is telling the story. It's part of like how we deal with music when it comes out to tell a story. Basically, the influence, besides the great direction we got from Paul and from Greg, it's that the game itself was extremely inspiring. So the colors, the creatures, the target audience, the story, so all of that fit us. And the translation, which means the result, which is the music being created, it's already translated in everything that we have listened our whole life, me and Jeter. I don't like, personally, to listen to one reference and use that when a client like really wants, okay, I want my music to sound like this one, because this happens. So what I do is like, okay, give me at least 3 or 4 more of this that you like, that could be a little bit different, that I could get inspired by. Because if you just have one reference without noticing, you're not creating from your inner source of inspiration. You are mimicking the reference with different notes. So they were feeding us with a lot of art from the game. We started very early on, which I loved it, because that allowed us to have a lot of iterations to make sure we're gonna shape and perfect the music, or at least work on it as much as we can. I did not play the game on the beginning of the project, because I don't think there was a build to be played that was like stable enough when we were composing. But they were feeding us with videos all the time. Which for me, I actually prefer to have the video, because if I play the game, I will get the gist of it, but sometimes the client send a particular video that usually, in most of the games, it's the most important moment of that particular cut of the game. So I know that that's where the music needs to shine. So I prefer that. And also I can load the video on my digital audio workstation, like Pro Tools or Cubase. And I compose to picture, even though it's not synced with timing or anything like that, but I'm using the video as a reference to create my music. So I just keep getting fed by that visual influence from the game right here on my TV. I think that my work is to really make sure that the message from Greg and Paul is sent to the world, and I really hope that they understand the word of the Dicefolk and what it's about and where it's going, and that's it. Like, of course, if people like the soundtrack and they listen to the music outside of the game, that's a extra win. I love that when this happens. But my main goal is always to make sure that that universe, that story, it's gonna be more clear and transparent and visible to the audience. That's my mission as a game composer. Music for Dicefolk, actually, like a lot of these levels, they are not complex music. They are simple music. Some tracks were a little bit more tricky, like the boss final form. That was epic. That was a little bit John Williams-y, of course, vibe. That was a little bit tricky in terms of harmony. I used some like jazz. I had to like go back to my jazz classes and okay, I'm gonna do some crazy harmonies here, like bizarrely crazily harmonies here. That was a little tricky, but the vast majority is like pretty easy to create for, but also in terms of complex of arrangement, but also because the direction from Greg and Paul was always very clear and very good. But if the music helps the player have more fun, understand the world of Dicefolk, play for longer times, and then my mission is complete. The music that I listen while I'm driving, it's most of the time, I would say 80% of my time is rock and roll, heavy metal. I still have I love, that's why I say like Iron Maiden, still on my top three favorite bands of all time, like Iron Maiden, Megadeth, Metallica. But I do like to listen a lot to soundtrack and bossa nova as well, especially because of I play guitar. That's my main instrument, as I say. So, but the harmonizations, which is something that I study every day, the bossa nova harmonizations are so difficult, and I just love to listen to be like, oh, that's an interesting chord progression. That's a nice solution of resolution, but 80% of the time is rock and heavy metal. Oh man, like my main audio software is called Cubase. That's where I compose everything on it. I have a bunch of synthesizers because I like to get out of the screen a little bit and go to my synthesizers, which is in a separated room here. And I'm experimenting right now with this here, the Vision Pro. So the way I use it right now, and I already use on a score, there is an amazing audio plugin here called Animove Z, which is amazing. So you can control the axis of the sound. It's pretty cool. But another way that I use it, and it changed my life, it's that my computer stays here. It's a Mac Studio Pro. My synthesizers are on the other room. So I used to keep coming back all the time. I'm like, oh, what was the chord progression I have to play here? Oh, okay. Then I go there. Now I get my screen, I mirror my screen. I get my computer screen. I take it with me, and I let it floating on top of my synthesizers, and I control with my trackpad. And boom, I'm seeing my screen here floating on top of each synthesizer that I'm playing. I don't have to keep going back anymore. It's freaking genius, man. I'm not exaggerating, I have 12 terabytes of virtual instruments. So I use everything from orchestral tools, Spitfire audio. I have my own library called The Amazonic, which I use on the game as well. What else? Like 8Dio, things from Arturia, a lot of stuff from Native Instruments. Yuhi, man, you name it. It's so much stuff, man. Especially on a game of Dicefolk. A lot of the stuff can be orchestral, but there was a lot of synthesizer and sounds that are like processed and recorded. It's pretty cool, man. Listen, man, I gotta tell you. So I've been very lucky and blessed for being able to checkpoint some of my dream projects. Bruce Dickinson was definitely a dream project. The work on the Sonic franchise, obviously, like first game that I listened to that brought my attention to the music. Oh, I also composed for a game that was co-developed by Nintendo called Nintendo Good Job. It was co-developed by Paladin Studios at Nintendo, so it was an amazing experience to work with those guys. I would love to compose for either a Zelda or a Final Fantasy franchise. If I compose to one of these in the video game industry, that's it, man. My mission is complete. I don't care for awards. I don't care for nothing like that. No. But dream projects, that would be Final Fantasy and Legend of Zelda. I think it would be amazing to do it. Legend of Zelda is way more difficult because it's Nintendo. They're much more close, and they very rarely outsource anything. But that'll be